Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Derek and Jason here.
Derek, Madonna came out apparently as gay over the weekend. Not quite sure. It seemed like a funny bit that she was doing, but it involved some giant panties and a missed shot into her wastebasket.
Yeah, let's break this down. So Madonna posted a video on TikTok where she's holding a pair of panties, women's underwear, and she balls it up and says, "If I miss, I'm gay." And then she appears to deliberately miss.
It's a cutaway shot where the panties miss. She's throwing out in a hamper, and they miss by like 7 feet.
But yeah, exactly. She's not intending to make it. It's not a close shot. It's a little bit strange. So Madonna has always played with her sexuality, right? I mean, this is part of her stock in trade. Remember that book that came out, Sex? She has always toyed with this, but seemingly has been fluid, but mostly heterosexual, at least in her personal life. Dennis Rodman, Jose Canseco, Tupac Shakur.
To our knowledge, I mean, she had the kiss with Christina and Britney, and then she replicated the kiss more recently with somebody else. Doesn't matter.
She's certainly a gay icon.
She's a gay icon. But to my knowledge, I think to our knowledge, she's never had a relationship with a woman, and she's never had a physical, intimate relationship with a woman, even whether or not it was an emotional relationship, except for the kissing on stage, which is not.
The kisses on stage seemed what people call gay for play. Like she was sort of, not mocking, not in a mocking tone, because Madonna is obviously sort of very supportive of LGBTQ.
Yes.
So that is not a question. What misses for me is, I think this is sort of a strange thing to sort of play around with your sexuality in your 60s and say, I'm gay as a stunt. If it is a stunt, and it seems like one to me, she's had mostly heterosexual, there's relationships in her life that we're aware of. There could be an awakening, but I don't think that's what's going on here. I think it's a stunt.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about this and in the morning meeting, and then Harvey had some thoughts on this that I think when as follows. Madonna obviously lives in a world for herself that is completely open to all sexualities, all lifestyles.
No judgment from her. She was into BDSM before BDSM was cool. Right.
And it's not like maybe she had finally a revelation in her 60s that she was gay, but you think that if she would have had these emotions before, she would have articulated them. There was no shame and nothing. She wouldn't have cost her career at all. It wouldn't have changed her persona at all.
You get the sense that she might have hoped she was a certain way because she was such a provocateur. It would have made her, she might have thought, it would have made me cool. I'm in this heterosexual body, but I really wish I could be more edgy.
That's where my concern is, to the extent I have concern about it, but that she just is so into being a provocateur, so into remaining relevant. We saw the NFT with the tree going out of her vagina, and we've seen all these little plays on social media.
She does tap into everything.
She tries to tap into everything to remain relevant, and I'm concerned that she's now tapped into this in an effort to remain relevant, which, to the point that I think you were making, it really does disservice to the gay community who struggles with these kinds of things, and actually it's hard to come out and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think she is given a sort of lifetime pass by the LGBTQ community. I don't think you will see anyone sort of take her to task and say, how dare you?
Right.
I mean, maybe in the age of Twitter, some people will say that, but she's got a lot of goodwill
out there, but she's got a lot of goodwill in the LGBT community.
And I take her that she didn't have any malevolence behind this. It's whether you should, I don't think
Depends
that
what you mean by
Madonna,
malevolence.
I don't think she's mocking being gay. I think she's sort of stunting on TikTok because she doesn't really understand the format and wants to do something that will get a headline. And so she is willing to just sort of like make a joke
with some plausible deniability because it's so like ham-fisted with the throwing the underwear and plus they're clearly not her underwear also. I think that was a big point. They're these giant bloomers.
If they are, it's a real sign of the times because I've thought about Madonna's underwear a lot in my lifetime and it was never that kind of underwear, right? I mean, that's not what
I'm not going to say right in response to that. That was very, very strange.
So, I have mixed feelings on this. While I think that any controversy that could possibly come out of it, that she's sort of, being too loose or mocking in some way, I think that'll pass quickly. But I was taken aback and not in a good way. I don't think there's a good look for Madonna. She always tiptoes that line between like desperation and that's sort of her thing. But this seems different than desperation. This seems a little bit to me potentially offensive to an entire community that has supported her entire career.
I go with desperation. I think it's just a real sort of missed attempt to be provocative, and instead has come off as insensitive,
like
maybe,
but
also just not creative and just a miss in every respect.
I want to move on to I think this is a miss, and obviously our next person that we're going to talk about, Kanye West, what he's done lately seems like a big miss, but maybe with him there's some mental illness involved. We'll talk about it. So Kanye West, he has been out and about wearing the White Lives Matter shirt, and now he took it out in a public setting. So we've seen him with Candace Owens standing there in the White Lives Matter shirt, but that was a sort of fashion show where you expect some provocative sort of visual artistry, and maybe it has a context that can live there. He wore it to North's basketball game, which is a kid's game. Kim snubbed him at the game. You can see she's giving him sort of an icy stare.
She's sitting sort of in row 1, and he's in row 3, almost directly behind her, and they're not communicating in any way.
At all. And you know, he has sort of brought now these antics that have created a firestorm. I mean, he tweeted over the weekend, things that people have called anti-Semitic, saying he was going to go DEFCON 3 on Jews, which I found interesting. I want to pause there for a moment. He wrote it as DEATHCON, DEATH. And he's also celebrated recently that he doesn't like to read books, and the term is DEFCON. I found that sort of a strange marriage, that he doesn't like books and celebrates not reading.
Everybody knows the term DEFCON from the War Games movie, not from reading books.
Oh, I guess that's right, but he misheard it apparently, because he put it as DEATHCON.
Kanye's crazy, but he's smart. I think it was intentional.
Oh, I didn't even consider that. I just assumed he has misheard the term DEFCON.
Yeah.
But you think it was like he wants to bring death upon the Jews? That's a really provocative statement.
DEFCON or DEATHCON is still bringing death upon the Jews, right?
Yeah, DEFCON, though, is like a military term about
how close you are to
readiness
nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Different kind of death, I guess. But anyway, I digress. So they're at this basketball game, and my question for you is, you know, we're beyond the point of whether he's appropriate or whether he says things that are, you know, overly inflammatory, but bringing it to North's game, do you think is indicative that he's going through some sort of serious mental episode, or indicative that this is the Kanye we can expect going forward, and it's just who he is?
So here are my thoughts. I'm trying to be as specific as I can about this. Him wearing the white, we know that Kanye has suffered from mental illness in the past, and there's a tendency, and everything that he does, I guess, needs to be looked through the lens of mental illness. But he is stating a political viewpoint that I think he truly, in his heart of hearts, has. And because it's so odd in liberal Los Angeles to do it, it's so odd as a black man to do it, it's so odd given his whatever, because he's so odd, we're assigning it to mental illness. I honestly think this is his political view, that Black Lives Matter is a scam, that that the Black Lives Matter movement, which was corrupt, the hierarchy that called themselves Black Lives Matter was very corrupt, and he's targeted that. Yes. But there's an entire movement that underlies the Black Lives Matter movement. There are people that underlie it who are good people, and he believes, though, that they're misguided in their beliefs in Black Lives Matter. I think he's stating a political opinion that you and I may disagree with, that most of the people at the basketball game in liberal Los Angeles obviously disagree with. But I just think to assign it to mental illness means we're just judging the statement as opposed to the man who's making it.
I agree with you. I think if Kanye has a sincere political belief about what he is saying when he goes on to be interviewed by Tucker Carlson, when he wears the White Lives Matter shirt, he likes hanging out with Candace Owens, something resonates with him deeply. I think you're right. It's dangerous to say, well, when he speaks in a way that I disagree with politically, that's his mental illness talking, and when he is in a more quote-unquote calm state, that's the real Kanye. I don't think that's true. I'm with you. I think everything is informed, and there's a lens of there's a mental illness situation in the presentation of his ideas sometimes. I see they're sort of erratic, it's sort of manic type episodes when he goes on these runs, Twitter runs, or he calls up Tucker Carlson. Apparently there were reports that he just wanted to have that interview and called him up directly and said, can I be on your show? And they're like, of course, I'd love to book Kanye.
I don't think he said, can I be? I think he said, I'm coming on your show.
Right, and I think the presentation is the way it sort of reads his mental illness. But I agree with you. I don't think this is not what he believes, and then you turn off the switch and all of a sudden he's a liberal and progressive guy. I think these are his true beliefs, but you also can't sort of entirely divorce it from, you know, the mental illness overlay, because I think some of his susceptibility to certain types of ideas is informed by that in a way.
Sure.
You know,
I can't,
and so you can't like
possibly
separate them entirely.
I can't possibly argue against that. I mean, we don't know where his mental illness starts and where it ends, and what's informed by it and what is more lucid thought. I don't know.
What do you do in this situation? Let's drag it back to this, because we all know his political views, and I don't want to sort of debate their merits. But at his basketball game, North is there. She's a very young kid. I think she's, 8 years old, let's say. Is it appropriate to bring it there? What should Kim do? You want fathers to be involved in their children's lives, and you want them to go to the basketball games and be supportive. But obviously, he's somewhat of a distraction here. So how do you manage that?
Well, I don't know if you do if you're Kim. I mean, first of all, if you're Kim, you knew what you were getting into when you married this guy, and you certainly saw it develop through the years. And this is her cross to bear now.
We're here now.
Her father, not her father, the father of her 4 kids is wacky.
Yeah.
And she has to deal with that. And she can't keep him from the basketball games, and she can't keep him from the birthday parties. And
he's in her life regardless.
He's in her life regardless. These kids are very young. He's not in her life for a very short period of time. It's basically for the rest of her, until she's 60.
Yeah.
This man is going to be an ever-present member of her family and of her kid's life. And she has to deal with that. I'm sure it tears her apart at times, and I'm sure she wishes things were different. But you sit there and you stomach it, just like she is doing.
It's tough. I've seen the sisters sort of come out. Chloe has sort of delicately said, "Kanye, we love you," in a post, and then sort of ratchets back to, "But you have to stop this behavior." None of it seems to work. I think what it does is it sort of feeds these manias in a way, because he feels silenced, he feels unheard, and when someone says, "Hey, calm down," it only seems to enrage him and send him further down the path.
He has full belief in his own A, sanity, and B, intelligence.
Yes.
He believes he is the smartest, sanest person in the world.
Correct.
I just paraphrased Donald Trump, and I didn't even mean to.
No,
right?
There are parallels there.
There are parallels there. And because of that, if you tell him to calm down, that's only going to exacerbate the lack of calmness, right? If you tell him to mind himself when he has these political views, it's only going to make him go more extreme.
Right. And if you're a yes person around him, it further emboldens him that, oh, you're one of the ones who understand and know what I know.
There's a lot of narcissism involved. Obviously, it's no surprise. He's a very narcissistic guy. He has great belief in his own talent, as well he should. And
he has real talent. That's the complication. There is real talent. There's real artistry. There's real genius to Kanye West. And
there's real mental illness. So where the hell do you land on this guy?
Where do you land? Because when an ordinary person comes and talks to him, he says, well, I'm the artistic genius. That's been proven. You've seen my track record.
Right.
Who the hell are you? You need another genius?
Yeah.
So, honestly, I do think about this sometimes. Could someone who he respects as a genius, Stevie Wonder, I don't know, someone who is heralded as a musical genius, and it's sort of
Quincy Jones.
It's uncontroversial. Yeah. Quincy Jones.
Right.
Would those kind of people resonate with Kanye if they said, "Hey, brother, look, we're both artists. I get what you're doing, but I think your message is getting a little garbled."
I think, and I don't know this, that Kanye thinks he's smarter than all those guys.
I do too.
He has compared himself to Jesus. He thinks that he is almost godlike, divinely inspired in his artistry, in his brilliance. He really does think he's the smartest person
and he believes that geniuses face these headwinds. So that's part of his narrative is I'm going to expect when people are going to push back, because that's what happens to geniuses. Jesus was thrown up on the cross and he was the genius of all geniuses. So it only feeds it.
Everything
it's a wild
is self-fulfilling,
situation.
right?
Yes.
Everything that happens fulfills his own belief in his destiny as this genius.
It's a sad situation. So let's move on.
Or it's the greatest, because a genius is the smartest guy in the world.
Tell me about Draymond. Tell me what's going on with Draymond Green.
So Draymond Green, we all know the video came out. TMZ got the video, published the video on Friday showing Draymond Green punching his teammate Jordan Poole right in the face. Prior to that, the Golden State Warriors had acknowledged, prior to the video being released.
I haven't seen a punch like that, by the way, since Kermit Washington.
Yeah.
It reminded me of that kind of punch.
Just a second, because I think there's something there. So prior to us releasing the video on Friday, TMZ releasing the video on Friday, the story was out that there had been a fight at practice and Draymond Green had punched or had a physical altercation with Jordan Poole.
Yes.
The Golden State Warriors, they were aware of the situation. Obviously, it was at their practice. They had the video, and they did not believe there would be any suspension, sort of a boys will be boys kind of thing. Our video comes out. There's now a call that goes up that says he needs to be suspended, because what we see in that video is horrific. Jordan Poole is clearly trying to diffuse this issue, is shying away as Draymond Green approaches him, sort of pushes Draymond Green away to
clear space,
to create space, clear space. And Draymond Green comes in with the malevolent intent to hurt him by punching him right in the face, and he does. And it is
launches a
connection.
haymaker. I mean, it is a true leveling punch,
and connects right in the middle of his face. And those we have talked to people who are associated with the incident, sort of know something about the incident, who say that the talk in the arena at the time was how incredibly loud the fist connection with Jordan Poole's face was. This was something intended to hurt, and it did hurt. So. They've now come out, Draymond Green has, and said that he is going to voluntarily step away from the Warriors for an indefinite period of time. We don't know if that means 3 days or 3 weeks or longer. This is, to me, pure cover for the Golden State Warriors who did the wrong thing in the first instance.
It seems that way because what Jason is saying basically is that the Golden State Warriors, having initially said, we know of this incident, it was at our practice, we saw it, there are plenty of witnesses, they're not alone in the gym or anything like that, and they came to the conclusion that this is basically boys will be boys, we'll be handling it internally, we don't expect a suspension. When the video then comes out for them to switch entirely, turn a 180 and say, well, now we need to suspend him, would basically be untenable. It would show them, it would just be bowing to the public pressure of the video.
We didn't do the right thing initially, but now that everybody knows about it, we kind of have to do the right thing. That's not a good position to be in. Remember in Ray Rice, so in the Ray Rice situation, he punches his fiance at the time right in the face in the elevator, knocks her cold, and then drags her out of the elevator.
It was plausible that the team didn't know about that.
The NFL, they knew about the incident. They suspended Ray Rice for 2 days. TMZ gets the video, publishes the video. They then suspended him for an additional 4 or 6 games. And the NFL had the plausible deniability of having seen the video in the first place. And they say, look, now that we've seen the video, we're going to increase the punishment. We didn't know how bad it was. The Warriors don't have that. They knew exactly how bad it was. They were there. They had video of it. They saw it happen. There was no plausible deniability.
So here we have Draymond saying, I will voluntarily step aside from the team just until this controversy dies down. He said all the right things. He said, look, I'm going to think about what I've done.
I apologize to everybody.
I apologize. He is falling on the sword. But you imagine that there was also a conversation with management that basically was, you need to step away. We didn't discipline this. Now this video's out. It's hurting our team, and you need to make it right by voluntarily stepping away. It's the only sort of tolerable sort of outcome because there needs to be some punishment. I don't think this rings like punishment in the same way, and I think the public is going to say, well, he gets a paid vacation after leveling a teammate.
We assume he's getting paid during this time. We know that had the Warriors been forced to suspend him or the NBA been forced to suspend him, he would not have gotten paid.
Right.
We don't know if he's going to get paid for this voluntary walkaway. I suspect that he is.
I suspect he is too, because if he's not, he would make the announcement as well that I'm walking away from the team and I'm not getting paid.
Right.
He would definitely make that to have it read as a punishment, or say, and any pay I'm donating to sort of a charity or I'm going to be taking in your management classes or what have you. He didn't say all of that. He just said, I'm going to walk away and sort of process this and think about it and sort of circle back. So it's a little bit of a middle ground that feels unsatisfying to me.
It feels very unsatisfying. I think the Warriors, an organization that has been perfect in its management of every situation for the last 10 or so years since Steph Curry came on the scene, they have been wonderful. They're the best run organization in the NBA. Everybody wants to go as a free agent to play there.
Yes.
They get the best of the best to go there. They win title after title. This is the first real misstep I've seen them make. I think it's recoverable. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
That's what I was going to ask. Do you think this blows over and the Warriors have a successful run at a repeat and we're not thinking about this?
What's interesting is Draymond Green's talent has declined dramatically over the last couple of years.
Jordan's is on the ascent.
Yeah, and Jordan Poole's on the ascent. Draymond Green's gotten older, and his talents are of a very specific physical nature that are going to decline with time. Jordan Poole is 23 years old, 2 years old, and he had a boom breakout season last year, and he's in line for a max $30 million, $40 million contract, whatever it is.
We have a story on our website that was the source of the tension, is that this guy may get a huge contract with the Warriors, and Draymond's having a hard time negotiating a very lucrative contract.
If they're going to pay Jordan Poole that kind of money, Draymond Green's going to be a casualty of that. They can't keep
There's
both.
a salary cap.
Right. So it's you got all these things. But so I think I think this might be the beginning of the end of Draymond Green and Golden State. And Golden State, he's been a crucial part of those title teams. So it'll be interesting to see if the team really recovers. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think the NBA sort of gets out of the way in a week or two. The season starts, and I think it's over.
I think that's right. So let's move to our last.
Oh wait, Kermit Washington, real quick.
Oh yeah. Tell them a little bit about Kermit.
1977, something like
somewhere
that.
Around there.
Kermit Washington, a player for the Los Angeles Lakers, were playing against somebody else, a guy who became an NBA head coach, a title-winning coach by the name of Rudy Tomjanovich. There was a scuffle that broke out at half court during the game, and Kermit Washington walks towards the scuffle. Rudy Tomjanovich is playing peacemaker, trying to push people apart, and Kermit Washington
to play peacemaker,
running in to play peacemaker. Kermit Washington running at Rudy Tomjanovich, reaches back and punches him square in the face and broke all of Rudy Tomjanovich's face, every bone in his
spinal
face.
fluid. It's horrific.
It's horrific. A lot of the rule, and this was at the before Magic and Bird came along to save the league. Just in the year or two before that, and the league was at its cocaine highs, its fighting highs,
very violent
its
league.
Popularity lows. It's when the NBA Finals weren't being broadcast live; they were being broadcast later. The league was at the depths of where it's ever been, frankly, since its inception. and then Magic and Bird come along and save it. But Rudy, that punch became the symbolic for the decline of the NBA.
Yes, and to your point, Kermit Washington never recovered from
Yes.
that. It followed him around for the rest of his career. He had a sort of serviceable kind of journeyman's career, but everyone only thinks about that incident. Draymond's different. Draymond has a couple two or
Kermit
three
Washington was
championships.
well regarded as a really good guy who just had a really bad moment. Draymond's not a really good guy.
It's the opposite.
Right.
Yeah, Draymond, this is what we were waiting for this powder keg to blow, and here it blew.
Yeah.
Let's move to our last story. So Bill Maher, on his real time on Friday, talking a lot about the sort of tribalism of America, and he's using the example of Mark Fincham. Mark Fincham is a guy who's running for Secretary of State in Arizona. He is a Trump-style Republican, and he issued some quotes where he said he can't fathom he's never met someone who voted for Joe Biden. He can't wrap his head around that type of person. It sounds almost fictional to him. Bill Maher uses this as a platform to get into the issue of it's not only bad that we're in these silos. The real harm of these silos is that not only are the views on the other side objectionable, they sound fantasy. They sound fantastical. You literally can't understand what the other side believes because we're in two different silos of truth. And without any communication between those sides, we're only going to get into a worse state of affairs. And so he's using this as an example. This is a guy who's going to be in a position of power potentially to determine election results, and he simply is unwilling to accept the fact that there are Democrats who vote for Biden.
He's also said that if Biden were to win the next election or a Democrat would, he just simply wouldn't certify the results.
That's right. It has to be fraud in his mind. And Bill is trying to say this isn't necessarily malevolence. He just can't get his mind around it.
Right.
He can't understand how someone could cast a vote for Biden. So if he sees that result, he'll immediately think that has to be the product of fraud. And I think it's wild because you think of everyone sort of rubbing their hands together. We'll steal this election. They don't think they're stealing it. They think they're rightfully getting the result that it actually exists. Does that make sense, Jason?
It makes sense. I'm not sure. I think that a lot of people who are behind this are malevolent and don't believe that Trump won, but don't care. I mean, that's the ultimate.
But know in their hearts that Biden won.
Or at least believe that he probably did. But just simply say, we don't care. I mean, that's despotism, right?
Yes.
That is what we see all the time in third world banana republics, right? Where you have a vote that comes in and the despotic leader says, I don't care what the vote says.
Isn't that a more addressable problem when you have a true fascist who says, I don't care about those results, be they what they are, I am going to take power, versus someone who is able to convince people that the other side is fraudulent? Seems like a sturdier path, because then you're sort of molding the facts versus just absolutely nakedly grabbing power.
I think they're always hand in hand. I think that every time that the fascist takes power, Vladimir Putin or Adolf Hitler, they don't say, oh, I stole the election. Right. They say, hey, that this person, we had a vote and I won the vote, and to the extent I didn't win the vote is because the fraud it's illegitimate and the fraud on the other side. That's despotism, and that's everything you are seeing from the election deniers is pure despotism. It doesn't. You can conflate these like, do I really believe he won, or do I believe it was fraud, or whatever it is. It's all just, it doesn't really matter because we want power for power's sake, and we think the other side is so stupid and so corrupt that it doesn't matter what the vote said, they shouldn't get it. And by the way, we've never seen it in our lifetimes, and I think in the last 2 centuries, the 21st and 20th centuries, we've never seen it quite this starkly put in America. But Democrats said the same thing in 2016 about Trump. Not our president. It was only the popular vote. The popular vote, all this stuff. Democrats didn't want to accept that was the reality.
Yes.
Republicans, we also don't want to accept that Biden won. Now, the difference, of course, is that there have been literally calls to arms on the right to overthrow Biden's election. There was a storming of the Capitol to overthrow the election. It's gotten much more serious and much more real. But the arguments exist on both sides. Yeah,
I agree. And it's just a very dangerous situation for democracy. I don't like to be sort of a guy who raises alarms about these things. I think we've had elections for a long time, but there is something strange about the inability to disprove a sort of conspiracy theory, right? There have been a lot of people who said, we've certified this election, we've counted these votes, countless courts have said the results are verifiable, and yet the narrative sort of continues in the face of all that, becomes a sort of impossible problem. It's sort of a Gordian knot that you can't sort of solve, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't believe anyone
Yeah.
that deviates from their narrative. So anyway, Bill Maher
Do you
always
solve
sort of
accordion
very
knot, or do you cut a Gordian?
Oh, you got to cut it.
You got to cut it.
Oh yeah, you can't untie that thing. It's Gordian.
It's Gordian. By definition, it wouldn't be
Gordian.
Gordian if it could be untied.
You got to get the scissors out. All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next time.